What if I told you the biggest women's hoop shocker of championship week wasn't just that Texas beat South Carolina? It's how they did it. A 14-0 opening haymaker. The Gamecocks held scoreless for the first 3 minutes and 23 seconds. And a South Carolina team that usually looks like the bully got punched in the mouth and never fully recovered. So here's the debate. Was this a one-game anomaly? Or did Texas just expose a blueprint that changes the national title race? Texas didn't just win the 2026 tournament title on March 8th. They took the top-seeded Gamecocks apart, 78-61, and they did it with the kind of statistical weirdness that makes fans immediately ask, wait, so is South Carolina actually vulnerable? That's what this video is about. We're breaking it into 4 big questions. First, was the 14-0 start the real game right there? Second, did Texas win this with shot-making defense, or both? Third, how alarming were South Carolina's early mistakes? And fourth, the biggest debate of all, is Texas officially a national title level problem, or is this exactly the kind of loss South Carolina turns into fuel? Because the numbers from this game are honestly ridiculous. Let's start with the stat that broke the internet. Texas opened the game on a 14-0 run. Not 6-0, not 8-0. 14-0 against the number 1 seed in the SEC title game. And South Carolina didn't score for the first 3:23. Against most teams, that's ugly. Against Texas, with that level of defensive pressure and physicality, it's a full-on emergency. This is where the debate starts. Some fans will say, relax, every team can get blitzed early. And sure, basketball is a game of runs, but against an elite defensive team, spotting them that kind of lead is different. It changes substitution patterns, offensive tempo, and most importantly, confidence. South Carolina head coach Dawn Staley basically said the same thing without sugarcoating it. She said Texas made plays, forced them to play a certain way, and that turning the ball over to start a game like that and giving Texas a head start was a killer. That matters because this wasn't random bad luck. It looked like Texas dictated the terms of the game immediately. They made South Carolina uncomfortable, sped them up, and forced them into the kind of start you almost never see from a team this disciplined. So the first debate question is simple. Was the upset decided in the opening 3 minutes? Or did South Carolina still have plenty of time and just never adjust? And if you think this was just about a hot start, the efficiency numbers make it even crazier. Texas shot 54% from the field in a championship game against one of the best defenses in the country. That is absurd on its own. But then you add the perimeter number, 57% from 3 going 4 for 7. Now before somebody says, well, they only made 4 threes. Exactly. That's what makes it scarier. This wasn't some fake upset built on chucking 33s and accidentally hitting 14 of them. Texas was efficient without needing crazy volume from deep. They got quality shots, finished plays, and controlled the game inside the flow of a real offense. Meanwhile, South Carolina shot 47% overall, which sounds respectable until you remember context. They hit just 25% from 3, going like 3 for 12. And they were constantly trying to climb uphill after that opening punch. Madison Booker led Texas with 18 points. And that stat that almost undersells her impact because she played like a tone setter. Not just scoring, poise, pace, shot selection, presence. She looked like the best player on the floor when the stakes were highest. That's the part fans should really be arguing about. Because if Texas can combine SEC-level defense with that kind of offensive efficiency, then this isn't just a tough out. This is a team that can beat anybody. But there's a counter-argument. South Carolina's defense may have been compromised by the turnovers in the early game script. When you're scrambling back after live ball mistakes, your half-court defense is never fully set. So maybe the shooting percentage tell a true story about Texas brilliance. Or maybe they're partly inflated by the chaos South Carolina created for itself. Which brings us to the most uncharacteristic part of the whole game. This is where the game becomes more than just an upset. It becomes a statistical shocker. Raven Johnson had 3 turnovers in the first 3 minutes of the opening quarter. That is not normal. Not for a guard that experienced. Not for a Dawn Staley team in a title game. And when your lead guard starts the night like that, your whole offense gets shaky fast. Entry passes get delayed, sets start late. Your spacing tightens up because everybody is second-guessing. And you could hear the frustration in the postgame. South Carolina forward Joyce Edwards said Texas' defense and the SEC defense in general is more physical than any other conference, and that they just tried to execute but didn't get it done. That quote stands out because it hints at something bigger. Texas didn't just outplay them, they out-physicaled them. That's a huge deal, because South Carolina is usually the team people describe that way. They're usually the ones imposing force, collapsing your rhythm, and making you look small. In this game, Texas flipped the script. Joyce Edwards led South Carolina with 13 points, but even that number tells you how off this game felt. The Gamecocks never had that overwhelming offensive force, or that avalanche run, where you say, okay, there's the real South Carolina. They had moments. They never had control. So here's the debate. Did Texas expose a real weakness in South Carolina's ball security and guard play under pressure, or was this simply the worst possible night for those mistakes to show up? And this is where the conversation gets really spicy, because Dawn Staley's response makes the future almost more interesting than the upset itself. After the loss, Staley said something that every contender in America should probably hear as a warning. She said the last time her team lost into this situation, they went on to win a national championship, and maybe this is exactly what this team needs. That is a terrifying sentence if you're everybody else, because one interpretation of this game is simple. Texas has arrived. They're 31-3. They just beat South Carolina for the SEC title. They went 13-3 in the SEC and then closed the deal with authority. That sounds like a team peaking at exactly the right moment, and not just peaking emotionally, peaking stylistically. Defense travels, physicality travels, shot quality travels. Those things hold up in March. But the other interpretation is classic South Carolina. You just woke up the giant, because the Gamecocks are also 31-3, and they went 15, won an SEC regular season play. Teams like that do not usually spiral because of one ugly championship game loss. Teams like that usually lock in, clean up the turnover issue, and come back angrier. So what are we supposed to believe? That Texas just gave the country a blueprint? Pressure the guards early, punch first, stay physical, and keep South Carolina from settling in? Or is that blueprint only possible if you have Texas-level talent, Texas-level toughness, and a player like Booker who can punish every little crack in the defense? That's the heart of the debate. I lean slightly toward this being more about Texas than South Carolina collapsing. The reason is simple. Fluky upsets usually come in with weird shooting variants. This one came with control. Texas defended, executed, shot efficiently, and never looked rattled. That feels repeatable. But repeatable for Texas doesn't automatically mean repeatable for everyone else. My prediction? This game changed the conversation, but not in the easy way people think. I don't think this means South Carolina's done, not even close. If anything, Staley's quote suggests this loss could sharpen them into a monster. But I also don't think you can call Texas a cute story anymore, not after a 78-61 dismantling. Not after a 14-0 opening run. Not after shooting 54% against this level of opponent. So the cliffhanger going into the national tournament is this. If these two teams meet again on an even bigger stage, was this the warning shot? Or the preview? Because there is a world where we look back at this game and say, that was the night Texas announced itself. And there's another world where we say, that was the night South Carolina got the wake-up call that led to a title. Either way, women's hoops just got way more interesting. Now it's your turn. Who deserves more trust right now, Texas after the statement win, or South Carolina because you know Dawn Staley teams respond? Drop your take in the comments, and don't just say who. Tell me why. Was the biggest shocker the 14-0 start? The 3 turnovers in 3 minutes? Or the fact Texas looked like the more physical team for almost the entire night? Hit subscribe for more women's hoops breakdowns, bracket debates, and tournament reactions all March long. And here's the poll for today. Did Texas expose South Carolina's biggest weakness? A, yes. Blueprint found B. No. Just one bad game.